Action Park
Media.
Let's get a mic check here. 1 2 1 2. Episode 43. No gruffs given. Wow, where do I go with this one? Where do I go? Let's start with this. Confidence. It's not just about hockey. It's easy to be confident when you have control of the puck. It's very, very difficult to keep that confidence when you got to take whatever strange bounces life throws your way. Don't be careless, but don't be too careful either. Confidence. It's not just about hockey. It's easy to be confident when you have control of the puck. It's very, very difficult to keep that confidence when you got to take whatever strange bounces life throws your way. Don't be careless, but don't be too careful either. Coach Ted Orion, D3, Mighty Ducks. Episode 43, no gruffs given. Confidence. Wow. All right, so we got a lot to talk about. First, I want to start with the passing of the Golden Jet, Bobby Hull. Now, I got the news a few hours ago, and it's really been sitting with me the last couple of hours. Like it's been seeping into my body because initially when I heard, I thought about Brett, you know, and I guess I've had the privilege to be privy to that father-son relationship. Like I've seen it in the insides of the walls of the home, right? And I've also had the luxury of hearing stories about when Brett was a kid. Now, these aren't stories that you heard on YouTube or on any interviews that he's done. This is like after a phone call with his dad on the way to practice, and Hully goes into a Bobby story about the Winnipeg days or wherever. There were so many. Then I got to think, like, what an unbelievable honor it was to be able to meet him. Like, not just meet him, but to know him, you know, which was, like, when I played in Detroit, you'd see Ted Lindsay around. He'd be in the dressing room. He'd be working out. This was a long time ago. We all knew Terrible Ted, but you didn't get to really, really know him. And with Bobby, like a legend. Before, I mean, his son was my favorite player, but I'm very well versed in the type of career that he had prior to Brett making the NHL. I mean, Bobby was a monster. Guy was a monster. He was a killer. Unbelievable player. Mean. As old school as you can get. Some would argue that the power forward was possibly invented because of Bobby Hull or the generations it morphed. I mean, he's the OG. He is the OG. You know, John LeClair. We're talking about apples and oranges to a Bobby Hull. Those big wingers, strong, can skate, tough as nails, love to fight. I'll tell one Bobby Hull story, and I was debating whether or not I should tell it. But I don't know. I think for some reason I'm feeling like it was February, and the Golden Jet was in town, and he was staying at the Jukebox, which was Brett's house. And I had met him briefly after the game. I had met him briefly after the game, you know, in the family room, right? And Bobby likes to get after it. Like he liked to get after it. He worked hard, played hard as you could play. And it was, you know, it was an incredible moment, right? But I went out after the game, and I ventured back to the house at 2:45 a.m. And I walked in, to the kitchen, okay? There's a part of this story that I'm going to leave out, but I walked into the kitchen and I was struck by a magnificent creature, a creature that was wearing a white tank top, and that was it. He had nothing else on but a white tank top. And he was in the process of guzzling like a 2-liter jug of milk. Now, this is 2:45 in the morning. So I don't know what night it was, but it doesn't matter if it's Saturday in Detroit. There's not much going on in February. And he looked over his shoulder at me, and all he did was he winked at me. He said, "It's good to see you made it home, Mr. Avery," and then went right back to chugging his milk. And it was like one of those moments that I don't know. I guess that was the first time that I ever sort of saw superstardom. Like obviously Holly and all those guys were superstars, but that was a grizzled. That was like right out of a movie, you know. Seeing Cary Grant in. I mean, it was just so incredible. And there's a lot of weight to that. And that's kind of what's taking me into. We obviously have to talk. I had my first jiu-jitsu tournament this weekend, and shout out Dave. Dave drove me. We went from the studio. We went to Cerritos, California. Cerritos Community College, beautiful college. To say that it was a shock would be an understatement. Me and Dave walked in there, not having any idea what was going on. There was a couple, there had to have been a 1,000 people or a few thousand people. I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of people. There were bleachers that were filled. There were so many people having matches, jiu-jitsu matches, like 8 at a time. You check in, you get your T-shirt. It was chaos, okay? So they didn't sell water there. All they sold were acai bowls, which was very on brand. And I actually had a Brazilian tell me that they weren't that good. So we were in the weeds a little bit, but it was shocking to the system, okay? So to segue into, like, I don't know if anybody's listened to Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson's most recent conversation, but it has blown my mind. It really blew me open. Joe hardly says a word the entire podcast. He kind of just segued from category to category they went into, but it is a mind-bending conversation. And, you know, Peterson went into everything. But they talked a lot about men, young men, narcissism, perception, what it's like to be perceived. Now, I want to bring it back into the jiu-jitsu tournament. So, Shoyo Roll, which is a company that makes gis, okay, they have this unbelievable marketing tool called the Shoyo tapes. Shoyo tapes, all right? Where you can call in and you can basically talk in jiu-jitsu slang. Like, you know, Letterkenny, there's a whole... Jiu-jitsu has its own whole slang language as well. It's wild, all right? So I called in, and this is where perception and narcissism and, you know, what it takes to be a warrior and that whole balance of where are we in life and what are we fighting for. So I did this stupid thing, okay? Now, I guess I'm not sure if it's stupid, but anyways, if you haven't heard it, I left a message on the answering machine. And I was thinking about it earlier. I was kind of playing a part, right? Because the ironic thing in jiu-jitsu is that egos don't really exist, because when I walked into this competition, I walked in with the full intention of having humility and possibly getting tapped, which in some circles in the world you could say equals humiliation, loss, defeat. But in this world, it's just a reality. And it's more about the respect of the competitors and putting yourself in there. Which then brings me to the actual event. Okay, so I posted one photo. Here's what happened. My weight division, and this is, I've been told this after the fact because I didn't know what was going on. All right, they call your weight, you have to weigh in, and then you go wait in like a pig pen waiting area. Try and warm up. There's a lot of mean dudes walking around with their gis on. But it's chill and it's calm and it's like competitiveness and everyone's there. And there, by the way, there's kids. It's a whole thing. It's amazing. What I now know is that apparently some guys weighed in. And once you weigh in, you see who's in your bracket. You can see the names. So I don't know what happened, but apparently some guys weighed in. They decided they didn't want to take part in their match. They didn't want to fight. So I was in a little bit of turmoil. Now I was told it was because they didn't maybe want to fight with me, but I don't even want to go there with that because I it doesn't even matter, right? I will say, though, and I said it last week, like, who was going to be the poor fucking accountant from Encino that pulled my name? This guy's a white belt. He just started jiu-jitsu just like me. And what are the chances? And I was thinking about this. What are the chances of there being another real, like, dog in this fight here? Like, I don't know. I had no idea. But I was expecting that there was going to be. But here's what's interesting. Jordan Peterson, they talked a lot about narcissism. And I not coincidentally, but because of that, I started to investigate this a little bit more. And I came across a test. And this test was created by Dr. Robert Hare and Delroy Paulus, University of British Columbia. It's called the Narcissistic Personality List. Now, keep everything tied together here. I'm at this competition. You know, you're there for humility, but you want to win. And like, you know, people are trying to, like, you got to have that killer instinct. Otherwise you're done. You're dead. Well, how do you be a killer or have that killer instinct without some narcissistic qualities? Anyways, I did a lot of research and I've had some history on this because I actually had the real test done recently. Coincidentally, all right? That's a long story. But I had all the guys do this test. It's a test that you can take on your own. You go to openpsychometrics.org, and it's a test. And I had all the guys, and it's a start button, 10 questions, maybe 15 questions. I had all the guys take it. Now, what was also very a good data point, for some reason, all the guys were a little bit hesitant right off the bat. Michael's to my right. You had thoughts about it prior.
I would normally participate in something like that, but it seemed like
you wouldn't.
No. Maybe clinically, but maybe not online. You know, if I was like in somebody's office, some respected psychologist or something, and you know, I'm curious, but I wouldn't normally.
Yeah, so the guys all get a random text message from me saying, "Hey, I need you to take this test before the podcast."
Yeah.
Now I'll just go through everybody's scores. So Carrie was 15, Scotty was 17, Dave was 11, Michael was 17 as well. Kevin Connolly. Interestingly enough, Kevin Connolly was a 20, you know. I don't know what that means. I was a 14. Broad spectrum. Now, the good news is that they provide you a list, okay? So one of the, in my opinion, most prolific serial killer psychopaths in the history of the game was a guy by the name of Paul Bernardo, who killed 2 girls with his girlfriend, Carla Homolka, who, funny enough, I'll tell you what her score was. Anyways, Bernardo was let me tell you what Bernardo was. He was a 38 out of 40, quite high, right? Now, to give you a little bit of perspective, in the U.S., if you're anywhere in the 30 to 40 range, you're considered to have some sort of psychopathy. So I guess that's legal speak for you're a psychopath on a certain level. All right. So none of us fall into the psychopath category.
Fantastic.
Now, what's interesting is that Homolka, she was a 5 out of 40, and she was considered a malignant narcissist. It's a psychological syndrome comprising of an extreme mix of narcissism, antisocial behavior, aggression, and sadism. Grandiose and always ready to raise hostility levels, the malignant narcissist undermines families and organizations in which they are involved. The reason I'm telling you this is that, you know, the higher the score doesn't always equal, like, I'm just in the weeds on this. I'm not. If you listen to Peterson, I mean, he blows the roof off this interview with Rogan. Jeffrey Dahmer was a 23 out of 40. John Wayne Gacy was a 27. Jeffrey Dahmer was a 23. I mean, Kevin's at a 20. Kevin said to me, well, listen, I'm an actor. I mean, I got to have some narcissism, right?
Makes sense.
Part of it. Mm-hmm. Now, the clinical process to do this properly, I think, I know it's a much longer, it's about a 3 to 4 to 5 hour process. And there's a lot of different variables, and you have to hit a bunch of different triggers. And I think it's 6 or more is then you're categorized. Still, I you know, so maybe Kevin isn't a 20, but he's in the ballpark. I mean, Gary Ridgway, who was the Green River Killer, he was a 19 out of 40. Now, I'm comfortable at 14 out of 40 because I'm not as close as Karla Homolka, and I'm not as close as Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, right? But Kevin's at a 20. I don't know what that means. Eileen Wuornos, who Charlize Theron played in Monster, she's a 32 out of 40, so that seems like it's in line. Yeah, Bundy was a 39 out of 40. I mean, Bundy was in it. He was there. Now, you might ask me, well, what does this all mean? Okay. Well, Jordan said something also interesting. And these are all just thought points. Like, I feel like I'm speaking in a Succession episode. Like, thought points, you know? We're talking about a serious matter, but these aren't really, there's not a lot of legitimacy to this because I'm not an expert, but we're exploring it. We're getting into it. Let's call it a thought point. Jordan says, what keeps the psychopaths under control? Question mark. He poses that question. Well, psychopaths are kept under control by a certain formula. And that formula comes down to 2 men, all right? Narcissistic, aggressive men get dominated by non-narcissistic, aggressive men. And that's what keeps the scale of everything sort of even. You know, Lady Liberty for narcissists. I'll just say it again. Narcissistic, aggressive men get dominated by non-narcissistic, aggressive men. And I always remember Brendan Shanahan telling me, like, the quietest guy in the room is always the most dangerous guy in the room. So bringing it back to walking into this competition. So I end up getting a fight. Shout out Ryan Drexler and Professor Makoto, okay? I guess what happened was they convinced somebody to have a match against me. I'm never going to post the video of it because, let me tell you, I didn't get the guy's name. I don't remember his name, but you can see the video. This guy epitomizes humbleness, humility, all right? He was scared shitless from the beginning. Dave, you were there, you saw it. Can you confirm?
Oh yeah, he looked terrified. I recorded the takedown. You could just see it in his face.
But this guy, I got to give him all the credit in the world. I love him. Like, honestly. Like, I went in there, and here's why the weekend, it was a learning experience because, and this is where it comes back, I was embarrassed a little bit by the win. Like, I didn't, standing on the podium with the medal. Like, it was fun. Everybody, there was no way I couldn't do it because that's part of the lifestyle. Like, you do that. That's what you do when you go and compete. So it's good etiquette. But I really felt a little bit embarrassed, And then I started thinking, why did you do that? The tape, call into the tape. Was it a bit? Or, well, yeah, it's a bit. But the reality is, this is what's really interesting about it. I went there thinking that I was going to possibly be humiliated, but not really. You know what I mean? But there's this balance in life of like what you feel personally, what the perception is, but also what the root of the whole thing was, which was you put yourself out there, nobody loses. I say this all the time. We always used to say this. You can never lose a fight that you're in. Like, you showed up and you're in the fight. Whether a guy goes out and fought for another teammate and he gets shit kicked, you can't lose that fight. You don't lose that fight. So,
Sean, do you think that your tapes persuaded people to not fight you?
That's a great question, Dave. Possibly, because listen, who would be out of their mind to say something like that? I mean, I called out, I put a target on my back, which I did when I played, and maybe this is a way that I self-motivate. Maybe this is part of my process. The only thing is, it doesn't really work. Although if you look at a guy like Gordon Ryan is a very abrasive, cocky champion. That's kind of his shtick. I mean, he goes out of his way to say that I'm the best. I don't think I'm ever going to be the best. But what I think is interesting is that I know for a fact that I went in there for a dogfight, and whatever happened was going to happen. It wasn't going to change the direction of where I go. It wasn't going to change. It wasn't going to change anything. Except now I know. It's like the first time I've done an individual sport. How do you win with grace? How do you lose with grace? Because it didn't feel right. And I'll give you a little bit of comedic hour. I mean, it was like this poor guy. What did I say? Some accountant from Encino. This guy, what a warrior. But I mean, it was a massacre. It was just a massacre. It was so wild that now we've reviewed the tape today, and we already trained this morning. We've reviewed the match. I was like dumbfounded in certain spots because there was so much domination, but I couldn't connect the dots. I didn't know where to go. It was like, what do I do? I have so many options right now. So eventually I just said, fuck it. And I stood up and I I grabbed this warrior's leg and I put him in a leg lock and I just tapped him. And I tapped him and I won by submission. So the whole thing was incredibly wild. Anybody that has a food truck in the California area, when they have these tournaments, put a food truck in the parking lot because you will be printing money. You'll run out of food. They didn't even sell water in there. No water bottles. Right? Me and Dave shared a water bottle. Then we went to In-N-Out Burger afterwards and we treated ourselves. So, Dave, a mazel tov for you. That was very good. Theo was at home. We had to get home. Now we know. Now, that being said, I do want to talk about a couple more things that Jordan was talking about. Something that really was interesting. He talked about this balance of like, masculine toxicity and how do we get everything in order? And like I said, you have the psychopaths getting kept in check by the narcissist with the non-narcissistic aggressive men, right? But he said something about women, and this was very interesting. And we're talking about modern day, like the struggles of what, young girls turning into women right now are facing, but also just any of the women in our life, all right? women equals, let's say, a woman goes or starts to go through puberty at 13. You know, the moment a woman goes through puberty, men, in theory, become a threat to that woman, right? To a certain extent. Now, I could debate that and say, well, hopefully we don't live in a world where that's the case, but just on the science of it, right? Hunter-gatherers, that whole thing. And then and then these young women become mothers, right? And now they're protecting their children against all the threats that are going on in the world or around, you know, from a motherhood standpoint. I mean, as a father, we can have ideas, but we didn't grow this child in our belly, right? I think there's a difference.
There is a difference.
So that then got me thinking. Then he started talking about what all these things do. Okay. Well, it creates anxiety and negative emotions, and women become sensitive to threats. And like, that's just the reality. And what's interesting is, you know, chivalry is this thing that we sort of look at as an ancient art form. But we also look at that ancient male behavior as somewhat chauvinistic. And there's this dichotomy of like, what is the balance and where does it fit in? Now, obviously, I think that you know, being chivalrous and that's the way to go about it. But I also think there's another layer to that, is just understanding, you know, our relationships, just like me and the guy on the mat. Like, I understood our relationship there. I tapped into it. I felt I knew how fucking brave he was doing what he was doing. And I'm not trying to be narcissistic, but like, who pulls my name out of a hat at their first jiu-jitsu tournament and it's me and I'm training every fucking day, and I also have a little bit of that's a bad draw.
I don't know that I would have got in.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's 4 guys that they pieced out.
I relate to that.
And so do I.
Yeah.
I do too, totally. Mm-hmm. You know?
And I think that you calling in and that was you getting yourself up for the game.
I was
100%.
Yeah, and you know, I was playing the game a little bit too.
Sure.
Because, you know.
But I mean, you could have walked in and fought somebody that, I mean, it's unlikely, I guess, that was a professional, like a former professional athlete or something, but it could still be somebody that, you know, that could be trouble. And, you know, you would have had to make that decision as well.
And by the way, I
when
knew
the blue
that.
belt tournaments come and that kind of thing.
And all eyes were on me. Like, I would have heard it afterwards if I went in there and got smoked.
I would have been very nervous. And I think, yeah, getting yourself hyped up for it, no matter, it's a blind draw. You don't know any of these people. So,
well, and what else is interesting is just on that fact alone, you know, most of the time narcissists don't have empathy. They don't really carry a lot of it. And I know how I felt after that. I had nothing but empathy for this fucking warrior from Encino that got up on the mat with me. I mean, so I guess as I sit here now, I go, this experience, I did get humbled. In the end, I actually did get humbled no matter what. It was a very humbling experience. It was humbling for me and Dave to walk into a new environment and be like overthrown with just chaos. We didn't know where to go, where to check in.
Sure.
The whole thing.
I've played sports where I've gotten onto the, you know, soccer in particular, got out on the field and been like, oh no, like these guys are a lot better than me, which made me ultimately better.
Well, I hope so. Yeah.
So I think that for this guy that, you know, he had to get over the fear of whatever maybe was that resistance of the other 4 guys. And he's going to be better for it.
Absolute, no question. And I made sure that I tried to convey that to him in the short moment that I had with him. Like, I think he felt my energy. Like, I was like, dude, you're a fucking warrior. That was awesome. Thank you for that. Because I would have went home without a fight. And that would have sucked.
Yeah,
that would have sucked. Ambitious striving does not equal narcissism. Jordan also talked about he's on a hole. He's shooting on a hole. Essentially, Jordan Peterson, they are creating the rival to the WEF. They had a long conversation about this. Is what they're doing is they're creating this unofficial, they're creating a challenging party to the World Economic Forum. And they're going to do it. I think Jordan Peterson is on a level, shooting on a level that not many philosophers since, I don't know, in the last 100 years have been on.
And how he was humbled and how he handled that and is like sort of battled through his own problems publicly.
He had
pretty remarkable.
Some addiction issues and it's like to just be humbled by that and be able to call the kettle black and admit to, like, he's very compassionate. He talks about how what we're doing now is we're demoralizing young men. Young men, lack of relationships. Now think about the relationship between that and these young women, right? And now how important all of it is. One of the things Jordan had mentioned, he said this. He said, either our young men are young patriarchal tyrants, or they're virgin raping planetary spoilers. And I was like, first of all, it's to fathom how a man can be so articulate with his words is incredible. Young patriarchal tyrants, or they're virgin raping planetary spoilers. I can't even say the words. I highly, highly recommend everybody going and listening to it. I highly recommend everybody taking the test and just exploring. The guys did it, and I want to thank them for doing it. I'm going to maybe think about having somebody come on and explain my more in-depth test, because I think, it's like, how can you... It would be beautiful to have Jordan be able to explain it, because I think he does this incredible service to being able to explain it to us, the common folk who aren't scientists, who aren't doctors, and try and understand it.
For somebody like me, I don't really do much reading, and so how I digest my information and things. It is very refreshing to hear somebody who's so well read and obviously studied and accomplished speaking on something that's so serious, or it's about our life and our livelihood. So
and
it is refreshing to hear that, and that's one of the main reasons why we still go to Joe Rogan.
Well, I think it's thankful that we now have, men like Joe Rogan and Jordan Peterson who aren't afraid. I mean, I guess you could say that they are the non-narcissistic, aggressive men. I mean, Rogan is aggressive in choices that he makes and people that he has on and his stand and his defiance. Peterson obviously is. It was really incredible. The Babylon Bee is just on fire right now. Pfizer pleased to announce their new vaccine, 90% effective against the new virus they created. It's satirical. You get it, right?
I do now. I don't know that I took it satirical at the beginning.
If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. That's the art of war. There's a lot in there. There's a lot to chew on in there. Mm-hmm. But it makes sense. They have now signs in New York. This is the ironic thing. There's stores in New York City that have signs, stop signs on their windows that says, due to NYC uptick in crime, if you wear a mask, no entry. Wow. In a short 12 months ago, you weren't allowed to walk into a store and feed your family. I mean, maybe 12 months? Who knows? Okay, a year and a half? I don't know. It seems like yesterday.
The world adapts fast, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, but you know it doesn't, because I think we're now just feeling the after effects, like I've said before, of those 2 years. We need to be around people. We need to be in humbling situations. We need to understand perception and how we're perceived. I saw another quote. That's why men like you and me are here. We have a job to do. And God help any motherfuckers who stand in our way.
Hell yeah.
It's like, that's what that's Jordan and that's Joe, you know, in their non-narcissistic way.
Mm-hmm.
That's why men like you and me are here. We have a job to do. And God help any motherfuckers who stand in our way. You can take that as a positive, like feel that and get your juices flowing a little bit.
You know, when I lived in New York City, I'd say, I like that the city's like get moving or get run over. Somebody said to me, I don't think it's like that. And I said, well, then move over.
Exactly. That's it right there.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. You got to be like a shark. You got to keep it moving forward.
I had a therapist once tell me, though, that I was in the right-hand lane laying on the horn and I needed to just get in the left-hand lane.
Well, that's another what a wise poet. Yeah.
That's resonating.
Just get over in the left-hand lane. By the way, Dave, how about those toll lanes in California where you can pay extra? And Dave didn't even flinch. He's like, yeah, I'm already signed up for it. We paid extra to ride in a lane that was a pay lane, and you didn't have any traffic. It was unbelievable. How nice was that?
It was awesome. It was the express lane combined with the carpool lane, and we literally chopped off half of the ride in 20 minutes.
It was just beautiful. And, you know, what was it? Probably $6 when you get your bill?
Yeah, that was probably like $4 or $5.
But just think about how inefficient our country is. Like, those should be everywhere. In Chicago, build the highways. That's what they did here in California. Now they have more land, obviously, when you get on the outskirts, but just build the highways above. And that's the future. And where are those tax dollars going? Not to manage our forests, you know, not anything. Jim Dolan's a real legend. So outside of this whole facial recognition technology that he's using at the Garden, which is just so fucking awesome and bonkers, it's like a real life Richie Rich, who's also like, he's the CEO of a company. He's just calling shots. He just calls the shot. The New York Rangers abandoned a week after Mr. Provorov in Philadelphia. They just scrapped their Pride Night jersey night. Now, there was uproar, and somebody wrote an article trying to rip Dolan about it. Let me just remind you about Jim Dolan, okay? Jim Dolan, he's an OG. He's got his Kashmir Mafia. He's got his card. He's a club-carrying card member, all right? The Geffins, the Dillers of the world, all those OGs. Dolan is all good. I think what it is, and I'll just read between the lines, or maybe I'll put a little bit of perception on it. I think Jim Dolan doesn't necessarily align himself with the LGBT plus Q, W, X, Y, and Z community, which is totally kidnapped and diluted and muddied the waters of what was a beautiful cause. We don't have to do a callback on it. We know what we're talking about. But I just think Dolan is incredible. Okay,
two of the superstars on the Rangers also Russian. 4 player Russian players. Maybe he didn't want to put his superstars in that position to have to make the decision either.
That's a very, very good in the weeds. Yes, Michael.
That was my first thought. Was, wow. Maybe he just dove on a grenade.
I'll tell you what. He's such an intricate, interesting, quirky man that who knows, he could be thinking that as well. So I love how we both have different perceptions of what his motives might have been, Yeah,
I don't know him.
We don't know. Either of us don't know. Mm-hmm. But it's you don't really know ever. And that can't stop you from like walking into that competition. There were people that probably wanted to see me lose. But you can't worry about that shit. You're on your own path unless that person says it to you. You can only just try and be a good man. You want to be a great man at the end. Bobby Hall had a lot of, I'm a little up. ESPN, they announced his passing with a quite slanderous, in 1998, Bobby Hall, I guess he was quoted as saying that Hitler did some good things. Who knows if he said it? ESPN obviously believes that he said it because they felt the need to put a ticker tape underneath it. It's like, what do you want to cancel the dead? now? Yeah, give us a day before you want to pile on. I guess the point is that, when I think about Bobby Hall, he wasn't a perfect man. He wasn't a perfect man. Do I think he was a great man? Yeah. I know his son. I know what Brett grew up to be. I know the dad that Brett is. The husband. Bobby did some shit. He did some shit, man. He was the type of guy that's why men like you and me are here. We have a job to do, and God help any motherfuckers who stand in our way. What were we going to talk about?
Ooh, well, there was big breaking news today with Bo Horvat trade.
No, there's something more interesting. Talk about the Kyle Dubas thing for a second, because that was way more interesting to me.
Okay. So Dubas, I maybe missed this. I know the diehard Maple Leaf fans are all over this, but Dubas goes into his final year of his contract as the GM of Toronto Maple Leafs without a deal. And, the Maple Leafs look really good this year. So that there's been some rumblings wondering if he does really well, would he then be one of the highest touted general managers on the open market? And I know that it's like mid-season, kind of crazy to talk about, but the Maple Leafs do look great. Their defense looks better.
Yeah.
And, like every year, we're talking about the Maple Leafs making a playoff run.
Of course we are. Can I begin now?
Yeah, and I said, I wanted to bring it up because I knew it'd get your goat. But, also, you have your boy Shanahan there, so maybe it's getting to be a little bit more, what does the future for the Maple Leafs look like?
Well, first of all, my opinion on the Maple Leafs has nothing to do with Kyle Dubas, although he is the architect of the team. The Toronto Maple Leafs are not going to win the Stanley Cup, and the fact that people are talking about this online and in comparison to, what type of situation is Dubas going to be in, man, he's got all this leverage. What if they win Don't worry about the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Stanley Cup. You have nothing to worry about. I promise you. When they're stud, their thoroughbred on the blue line is Morgan Riley, who just scored his first goal of the season in game 42. You got nothing to worry about, Leaf fans, okay? Kyle Dubas isn't going to break the bank. His salary doesn't go against the salary cap anyway, so it's kind of a mute conversation. Although if you think that he should be holding the keys to the castle for the next 10 years, I guess that's your personal opinion. But trust me, you have nothing to worry about when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs winning the Stanley Cup this year. I guarantee it. I will bet the farm. All right, all you Leaf fans, but that's what makes you beautiful. That's what makes you beautiful. It's the ultimate romance. You get your heart broken, you fall in love year after year after year. Some might call that a cuckold. I don't know. But I can promise you, don't worry about Stanley Cup dreams. Anything else?
I mean, I think the Bo Horvat trade says that the Islanders are going to try to make a push here in the second half.
Michael?
Okay, well,
Michael, the Islanders, it's like, talk about a team. Get me interested in a team. How many games have the Boston Bruins won in a row?
They've lost 3 in a row.
Oh, ha. Interesting. Who said something? Scotty's not in here right now, but, he was dead set 2 weeks ago that they were still rising. There were not. Dude, this is peaks and valleys. It's like life. It's like relationships. You got to weather the good times, the bad times. They're not, but you got to peak. You got to always peak at the right time. So you want to talk about Tampa? Yeah. How many have they won in a row at home?
12.
12 at home?
Yeah. And
who else looks good?
Carolina Hurricanes.
Okay.
I can't get enough of the Hurricanes.
You love the Hurricanes.
I do. They're really tough.
Who's their goalie?
Well, Freddie Anderson when he can stay healthy, but
Yep.
they have 3 NHL legit, Antti Ranta, and then the young Russian kid we watched in the playoffs
Yep.
last year, they call him Kochek.
Who's the team that you think
Kochek.
they're going to split goalies in the playoffs? Were you talking about that? Or was it Carolina?
So Carolina, I feel like before the trade deadline, there's a couple teams that have goalie depth that you might see start to shuffle around.
Yeah,
because there's 3 guys. I mean, so Buffalo has 3 guys dressing.
Why, Buffalo's in a playoff position?
Well, they're in the.
Talk to me about real teams, Michael, right now.
Well,
Carolina, who else?
but so
What's
that's-
going on in Vegas?
So Vegas is stringing some games together. They have battled a lot of injury, but You know, the rookie goalie's making his first All-Star appearance, Logan Thompson. So Seattle's unbelievable. They're the first in the Pacific right now.
You like Seattle's game?
It's what Ron Francis built. It's they play every shift. It's 4 lines. It's
which is, by the way, great defense, in the playoffs.
You know?
Okay,
they don't have the greatest goaltending, but Martin Jones is having a year. Even though his save percentage and other things aren't great, they're winning games.
So that's the type of team that's also dangerous.
Very dangerous.
They don't, the highs and lows aren't too high, too low. They didn't get crazy, crazy hot, but they go into the playoffs and they play the right way.
Yeah. And I think you could find somebody like Winnipeg they're kind of on the same trajectory we've seen the Lightning. They started kind of slow. They're a top 5 team in the league right now. And Kyle Connor had a slow start. He's kind of going through a little slump here and going into the All-Star break. But the Winnipeg Jets are legit. The Oilers have actually strung some wins together. So,
you wanted to talk about so Austin Matthews, you told me he's going to get a $16 million contract. How many years?
I think it's the 8-year is the max.
Right.
So at the max deal, whatever it is. And somebody said that it's like 20%.
I believe that. I mean, Connor McDavid, yeah. Okay. Would I give Kucherov that deal right now? No. Would I give Austin Matthews that deal right now? No. It's just too long and too much. So, you got to draft more players that can. It's like Moneyball. Literally, it's like Billy Bean. What do we need? We need shots on goal. We need block shots. We need goals. We need hits. And it's that formula of to dump all your eggs in one basket seems wildly irresponsible.
I agree.
Now, if you're the New York Rangers and you need a big market player, then I could see you taking a shot at it, taking a chance at it, right? LA, obviously Arizona would be great because they're trying to rebuild that, arena and then franchise. Yeah. That would be a good place to start. Mm-hmm. But I think it's crazy for the Leafs. But, even
when the Lightning did it last year with Hagel and Paul, they were not doing it for a 1-year thing. That was like building towards the future. I think somebody who's looking for Jonathan Taves or Kane or some of these guys, it's like a 1-year rental sort of thing. Like
you always take it in I don't even know. We're talking about a $16 million 8-year deal.
Yeah, but
Hagel and Paul. Well, look how those deals have turned out.
They've turned out great. So,
but I agree that it wasn't like, that was going to take some time. But the money's just not there.
I think that moving big pieces, you have to get good things back. And you can make those big investments like Bo Horvat.
Oh my God, he just went back to fucking
I'm excited about the Bo Horvat.
Let it go.
Trade. All right.
The Islanders also, they don't have to worry about winning the Stanley Cup anytime soon. They don't.
Okay. Well, they have a great goaltender. Now they have potentially the captain of the future and their number 1 center.
I thought you would have some weird Fort Wayne Comet tie-in for Bobby Hull. Never WHL. You got no connection there?
I don't.
Hockey bukkake.
Yeah, I will do some more digging. It's interesting that you say that because I didn't know. I didn't think to make a connection.
No. Okay.
But we did have,
That's going to eat Michael up for a long
it
time.
Is.
By the way, Michael is currently in the process of editing The Masked Singer. And I asked him. I said, do you, assistant editor, fine. Mm-hmm. I said, do you know who's in it? And he said, yeah, absolutely. I said, well, tell me one fucking name. He was like, no, not a chance. I'm never going to get it out of him. But that's a beautiful thing. You can't tell people. You tell me and I tell somebody and now it's on Reddit.
Yeah.
That's your job.
Yeah.
But you know everyone that's on there and that's a high stakes fucking.
If I said to you, let me see the Oppenheimer script.
No, I'd say I would get killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
It's not the same, but same.
Well, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's showbiz, and it's responsibility and money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, The Last of Us.
Awesome.
Did you watch last night?
Oh yeah.
That's in my opinion one of the greatest episodic TV episodes in the history of television. Did you see that coming from anywhere?
I did not.
What an incredible fucking love story. Those two guys.
I know.
First of all, both unbelievable actors. The guy from White Lotus, I'm blanking on it. I was crying. That was like the definition of love.
Yeah.
It was so, I'd never seen a turn coming so hard like that. That show has just elevated itself. We talked about this last week. We're like, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all in on that show, and they could do anything. That was one of the best hours of television I have ever watched.
Agreed.
I mean, so poetic.
And it's really cool to see how you bring in like some big actors to do a very specific piece to like set it up for where
Genius.
they're. Yeah, I mean,
It was genius.
because I was like, oh, any minute now, Pedro Pascal's character is going to show. They're going to show up, and then
they
it's
just stretched it, and
Yeah.
it was its own little mini movie,
Yeah.
and I ate every minute of it.
absolutely.
Yeah, I watched that last night. I was trying to figure out how it ties into the rest of the show, that
Jesus
story.
Christ. Just go with it, Dave. What do you mean how it ties in? It was symbolizing what we could all lose, what we could never have. You know, the unbreakable bond of love, when it really is the truth. You know, when you ultimately have each other's backs on a level that is, and you teach each other things.
Mm-hmm.
It was fucking beautiful.
It makes me wonder what the other stops are going to be.
Oh,
like,
I don't
and who
even
are
know.
Those actors are going to be. That's what.
Well,
really,
I hope they keep it going like
do too. I
that,
do
because what an invention.
Yeah.
Just beautiful. And I talk a lot of shit about a lot of shit, but this thing is, man, that is just beautiful storytelling, and it just makes you think. I don't know. Anyways, do yourself a favor. Check that out. Cameos, book them. All right, all you content vampires out there, or make a donation. No gruffs given at, what is it? Venmo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, whatever the Venmo is. I don't even remember.
I don't either.
But just do it, okay? Oh, I'm going to leave you with this. 3 questions that you ask somebody that you love or you're connected to at the end of the week. I think we should all do it. We should all check in with somebody at the end of the week and ask them 3 questions. I could only come up with one. Like, I've been racking my head about it. My one is, what more do you need next week? What more do you need of next week? Like, and it could be something that I need to provide or that you feel like you're lacking somewhere else. But it's just like, what a moment. I don't have 2 more. If you have suggestions, send it to us. But think about it. 3 questions at the end of each week. You sit across from the person that you love or a person that you love and ask them. Could be between a father and a son, a daughter and a dad, a parent, a teacher, anyone. Yeah. Any off the top of your head? No, don't ruin the moment. Episode 43, no gruffs given. We'll see you next week.
Action Park Media.